Hey everybody, this is Barbie, also known as the Glitter Goblin. I wanted to go over some simple ink blending today for those of you who may be beginners or for those of you who are experienced card makers and scrapbookers and just are not happy with the way you blend ink. All right, so what I'm going to start with is sort of an easy splotchy sky. And I'm going to use two of Tim Holtz Ranger Distress Oxides, Stormy Sky and Tumbled Glass. And I'm just going to use them with the same blue brush and wipe it off a little bit in between on a paper towel. So I'm going to start with Stormy Sky. Let it go ahead and be its name. I do have a little bit of yellow on this brush. I was just blending a minute ago with some blue and yellow, and I see my brush is a little corrupted. That would have been taken care of if I would have wiped this off on a paper towel a little bit better. All right, but right now I'm just doing a completely sky background, like if I wanted to make a card of kite flying or something like that. And I'm leaving some white. I've got some splotches. I'm not overly concerned about that. I'm going to wipe off my brush a little bit on a paper towel, come over here, dip into the tumbled glass, and I'm going to fill in a few of these places that are still white. And so it gives kind of that effect of a little bit of bright sky showing through some clouds. Okay, so I'm leaving this splotchy. I'm not particularly concerned with filling it in, making it 100% solid. This would be a card where I would, like I said, put a kite on, add some string, some things like that. Maybe add a few birds. Okay, so that's kind of the look I'm going for. Since I accidentally got some yellow in this corner, I'm gonna run with that, and I'm just gonna add a little bit more yellow. My particular yellow ink pad is probably at least 15 years old. Ooh, I didn't mean you add quite that much. It's probably at least 15 years old, so it's a little gunky looking, but it still, as you can see, works quite effectively. Okay, so when I take this and I add sky things to it, like I said, maybe a kite, some birds, etc., that is going to look great. All right, as you can see, I'm using the Tim Holtz Ranger Distress Oxides. For me, that's what works best for ink blending. There are other inks I use for other things. I use VersaFine Clair for a lot of my stamping. I use Lisa Horton Interference inks when I want something really festive and metallic. The oxides just wipe away very easily. All I did was spray some water on it and wipe it with a wet paper towel. I know there's still ink and things on my mat, but that's stuff that's been there for a long time. That is nothing that's fresh from today. All right, so the next thing I want to show you is just blending a smooth blend. Okay, so here we're going to remember our lessons from kindergarten. We're going to remember that red and yellow make orange. I'm using barn door and mustard seed. And we're going to remember that blue and yellow rather, make green. And I'm going to blend those together. I've lined this up next to my squares just so I can approximate about 1.5 inches per color. I'm going to start at the top with barn door. I'm actually holding the paper down with my knuckles at this point because I've been practicing this for a few minutes and I have ink all over my fingers. Okay, so if you are trying, see these are splotches right here. If you are trying to avoid splotches, experts will tell you to start on your mat or to start on scratch paper and come over onto your cardstock to help avoid things like that. I'm not particularly worried about it here because I'm trying to make a very solid color. Okay, so I want you to see that my red at the top here is becoming a very, very solid red. Like if you saw it by itself, you almost might think that you were looking at red paper. All right, then as I go down into the rest of the card, notice that it's very, very light. I'm just using the ink that's left over on my brush. I'm not adding new ink down here. I'm wanting to stay light there to interact with my yellow in a few minutes. All right, so keeping that, then I'm going to skip to the bottom and use my Stormy Sky. Again, coming in from the bottom. Ooh, I think my Stormy Sky is starting to dry out some. I'm going to need to get some re-inker. So they do have re-inker bottles for these kinds of ink pads, where you can just buy a small, I think it's like 1 fluid ounce, maybe 2. I think it's just 1 though. A small bottle of ink that you can add the drops onto your pad and bring it back, bring the ink back. So that's a good investment. And I know a lot of people who, when they order an ink pad, just automatically order the re-inker for it so they have it whenever they run out. My ink pads are about 15 years old, so they're still going strong. I did go for a long time in there without doing much crafting, though, I must confess. I had a different career and was busy with that a good amount of the time and did not always attend to my mental well-being and the crafting I should have been doing. All right, so just because I'm thinking of it right now, red and yellow make orange, yellow and blue make green. But remember too, from your lessons in kindergarten, there are colors that just kind of make mush. All right, green and red together can be, not a pretty brown, not a brown that you would want on a project, but kind of this, I don't know, looks like vomit or whatever. So be careful when you are blending to put together colors that will work together. All right, what I'm going to do here at the beginning is I'm just going to concentrate on my yellow, and then I'm going to go up into the red a little bit and concentrate on mixing that red and yellow to make my orange. Now, here in inking, don't go with the concept of less is more. More is better in inking, okay? There's a lot of things you can do to a card to kind of mess it up by adding too much, but ink is not one of those things. All right, so you can see here I'm starting to get a very distinct orange. I think the one thing I lack is that I want to just go in with my red brush, a little too dark there, one more time and add a little over that. I went too far. So I'm going to go back with the yellow. But you can see it's not straight lines. That's not what I was going for. If I wanted straight lines, I would have used some masking tape and marked it off so that they didn't blend into each other. But you can see there, I've got a very distinct orange color. All right, so now I'm just going to wipe off my brush a little bit because it's got some red in it. I don't want my red down in the blue. Now I'm going to go back to that yellow. I still want to maintain my yellow. And I'm going to come down a little bit into the blue. The blue doesn't blend quite as readily. So I've got the yellow laid over the blue, and I'm definitely going to come back here and lay some more blue on. All right, there we go. You can see now it's starting to develop into that very distinct green, okay? Now, if you did not like this particular color of green, you certainly could use a green ink instead. You would just use a little bit less of each color, and where your green blends into your yellow, you would have a little bit of a lighter green. And you have to watch out for things like this that I just did. I put my red thumbprint into my blue section. All right, I'm going to wipe off. I've got a lot of yellow on my blue brush right now. So I'm just wiping that off onto a paper towel, trying to get the yellow to come out. My paper towel is half soaking wet because I was cleaning up from earlier. All right, I've got most of that yellow off. I'm going to dip back into the blue. Again, I'm holding this down with my knuckles now. A lot of people will take a scratch piece of paper or a sticky note and put on where they're going to stick their fingers down so they don't do what I just did. But I'm going to try to cover this up a bit. And listen, the thing about card making is you can always hide small errors. If I were making this into some kind of a card, I could put my saying down here. I could cut off a little bit of this so that I have more of a border showing around the card. I could put some gemstones there, a little flower, you know, just depending on what kind of a card I was making. All right, so what I have now is that blended card, and you'll see two fairly different looks. Like this is a fairly solid inking job. And y'all, I've made the yellow almost disappear. So if I want to bring that back and make that a little bit more distinct, I can go back in and add some more yellow. All right, but this is fairly solid. It doesn't look like it used to be a white piece of paper anymore. All right, whereas if I go back to this that I did much lighter, it still has that wispy, ooh, there might be some white clouds in there kind of look. So, you know, what you do with your ink blending also depends on the kind of project that you're working with. Anyway, those are just my thoughts for the day. Oh, let me do show you though. Oh, I don't really have, okay. I don't really have a green, so I'm going to make a green real quick. This is just a splotch on the back of the page I was using. I'm going to add a little yellow. I'm going to make this kind of, ooh, I'm going to have to give these brushes a good clean here in a little bit. So I'm making this kind of weird green. And now if I add my red to it, well, these are oxides, so they do blend a bit better, and the red is kind of covering all of that mess, but it's just not, I don't know, it's not a great color. It's not something that you want in the middle of your project. So that's, you know, goes back to what I was saying about watching which colors you are blending. Okay, so again, these were the Tim Holtz Distress Oxide. I used Barn Door, Mustard Seed, and Stormy Sky on the rainbow card and got my 5 colors out of that instead of just the 3. And then on my Sky card, I used Stormy Sky and Tumbled Glass with little bits of Mustard Seed. Now, just to show you this, in case you've never seen it before, Tim Holtz is the master of this, but you can, when you're cleaning up, you can spray, and you can just take a piece of white paper and dip it into your inks. I don't have all of my equipment upstairs where I am right now. The best way to do this is to take a heat tool to it and dry it in between layers so that your yellow and your red aren't just blending together and becoming a bunch of mush. And you get different effects depending if you're setting it down and dragging it through versus if you just go dot, 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 dot. Usually the dot, dot, dot turns out a lot cooler. But now I have this colored background, okay, in addition to the backgrounds that I just made, just from the extra ink that was left on my table. And now I can clean the rest of that up with my paper towel. All right, so this I might not use as a solid background in and of itself, but after that dries, if I go in there with a flower hole punch and cut this out into little flowers or, you know, something that would be balloons maybe, and then do a little bit of shading, maybe throw a gemstone in the center of the flower, you know, then I have something usable here, particularly if I put a little shimmer spray on it or something as well. All right, so that's it for today. Thank you for joining me for Ink Blending 101. Good luck. Bye-bye.